Malaysia isn't just another Southeast Asian country. It's a living laboratory of what happens when different cultures, religions, and economic systems collide in the most unexpected ways. While most countries struggle to balance just one or two major challenges, Malaysia somehow managed to juggle economic growth, ethnic diversity, religious harmony, and political stability all at once. And the results? They're better than what most experts predicted. In this video, we're breaking down exactly how Malaysia built what many consider the perfect formula for a developing nation, the strategies they used that other countries tried to copy, and why this model might not last forever. Let's dive in. Malaysia's story starts with a problem that would destroy most countries. Imagine trying to build a nation where Malays, Chinese, and Indians all compete for resources, where Islam is the official religion, but Buddhism, Hinduism, and Christianity are practiced openly, and where wealth is distributed so unevenly that riots break out in the streets. That was Malaysia in 1969. The May 13th incident left hundreds dead and forced the government to completely rethink how the country should work. Most nations would collapse under that pressure. Malaysia did the opposite. They created something called the New Economic Policy, or NEP, in 1971. This wasn't just another government program. It was a complete restructuring of Malaysian society. The goal was simple on paper, but nearly impossible in practice. Lift the Malay majority out of poverty while keeping the economically dominant Chinese and Indian minorities invested in the country's success. The strategy was controversial from day one. The government gave Malays special privileges in education, housing, business licenses, and government contracts. These affirmative action policies, known as Bumiputera rights, guaranteed that at least 30% of corporate equity would be owned by ethnic Malays. University quotas ensured Malay students got priority admission. Government jobs were reserved primarily for Malays. Critics called it reverse discrimination. Supporters called it necessary correction. But here's what actually happened. Poverty among Malays dropped from 65% in 1970 to less than 2% by 2014. The Malay middle class exploded. Chinese and Indian Malaysians, instead of fleeing the country or staging protests, adapted and thrived by focusing on private sector growth and international business. Malaysia became one of the few countries in the world where affirmative action didn't lead to economic collapse or ethnic conflict. It led to growth. GDP per capita jumped from around 1,100 ringgit in 1970 to over 48,000 ringgit by 2024. Now here's where Malaysia's strategy gets even more interesting. While the NEP focused on domestic harmony, the government also made a calculated bet on globalization. In the 1980s and 1990s, Malaysia opened its doors to foreign investment like few other countries dared to do. They didn't just welcome multinational corporations. They rolled out the red carpet. Tax incentives, industrial zones, streamlined regulations, and infrastructure investments, all designed to make Malaysia irresistible for manufacturing. Intel built its first offshore assembly plant in Penang in 1972. Today, Penang is called the Silicon Valley of the East. Over 40% of the world's hard disk drives are made in Malaysia. Major tech companies like AMD, Bosch, and Infineon run massive operations there. But Malaysia didn't stop at electronics. They diversified aggressively. Palm oil became a multi-billion-dollar industry. Malaysia produces 26% of the world's palm oil supply, second only to Indonesia. Rubber, petroleum, and natural gas added more revenue streams. Then came Islamic finance. Malaysia positioned itself as the global center for Sharia-compliant banking and investment. Today, Malaysia accounts for over 60% of the global Islamic bond market. This move opened doors to Middle Eastern capital and strengthened ties with Muslim-majority nations. Tourism exploded too. Kuala Lumpur became a regional hub for budget airlines, medical tourism, and Islamic tourism. The Petronas Twin Towers became an icon. Malaysia attracted over 26 million tourists in 2019, contributing about 15% to GDP. But here's the part most people miss. Malaysia's success wasn't just about policies. It was about timing and geography. Malaysia sits at one of the most strategic locations on Earth. The Strait of Malacca, which runs along Malaysia's west coast, is the shortest sea route between the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea. Over 25% of global trade passes through it. That's oil from the Middle East, electronics from China, and goods from Europe, all flowing past Malaysia's shores. Controlling access to this strait gave Malaysia leverage. Singapore might be the financial hub, but Malaysia controls the land, the resources, and the space. This geographic advantage attracted shipping companies, logistics firms, and trade-dependent industries. Malaysia also borders Thailand, Indonesia, Singapore, and Brunei. That puts it at the center of ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, which has a combined GDP of over $3.6 trillion. Being in the middle of this economic bloc meant Malaysia could serve as a manufacturing base, a distribution center, and a gateway to 650 million consumers. Now let's talk about something Malaysia doesn't get enough credit for: education. While other developing countries struggled with literacy and school enrollment, Malaysia made education a national priority. In 1970, literacy rates were around 60%. By 2020, they were over 95%. The government built thousands of schools, trained teachers, and made primary education free and compulsory. But they didn't stop there. Malaysia invested heavily in technical and vocational training. They understood that a high-tech manufacturing economy needs skilled workers, not just cheap labor. Polytechnics and vocational institutes were expanded nationwide. Programs were designed in partnership with industries like Intel, Motorola, and Sony, so graduates would have job-ready skills. The results were immediate. Malaysia developed a reputation for having one of the best-trained workforces in Southeast Asia. Engineers, technicians, and IT professionals became Malaysia's secret weapon. Higher education expanded too. Universities like University Malaya, University Kebangsaan Malaysia, and University Technology Malaysia grew in size and reputation. International branch campuses were invited in. Today, Malaysia hosts campuses from Monash University, the University of Nottingham, and Heriot-Watt University. Let's shift to infrastructure because this is where Malaysia really flexed. The government didn't just build roads. They built highways, airports, ports, railways, and entire cities from scratch. The North-South Expressway, completed in 1994, stretches over 800 kilometers and connects the Thai border to Singapore. It transformed travel and trade across the peninsula. Kuala Lumpur International Airport, opened in 1998, became one of the busiest airports in Asia. Port Klang, near Kuala Lumpur, is now the 12th busiest port in the world by container traffic. Then there's Putrajaya, a planned city built in the 1990s to serve as Malaysia's administrative capital. This wasn't just construction, it was a statement. Malaysia was showing the world it could plan, execute, and deliver world-class infrastructure. Public transport improved too. The KTM commuter, LRT, MRT, and monorail systems made Kuala Lumpur more accessible. The MRT, completed in phases starting in 2017, is one of the most modern metro systems in the region. Now, let's address the elephant in the room: corruption. Malaysia's success story has a dark side. The 1MDB scandal, one of the biggest financial frauds in history, exposed how deeply corruption had infiltrated the government. Former Prime Minister Najib Razak was convicted of embezzling billions of dollars from a state investment fund. The scandal involved money laundering, luxury purchases, Hollywood films, and political bribes. It shook Malaysia's reputation and led to the historic 2018 election where the ruling coalition lost power for the first time in over 6 decades. But here's what's fascinating. Malaysia survived the scandal. Najib was prosecuted and jailed. The new government, led by Mahathir Mohamad and later Anwar Ibrahim, pushed for reforms. Transparency increased. Anti-corruption agencies got more power. This resilience is part of what makes Malaysia unique. Many countries with similar corruption levels would descend into chaos. Malaysia absorbed the shock, made changes, and moved forward. Let's talk about diversity again, because this is Malaysia's superpower. Walk through any Malaysian city and you'll see mosques, temples, churches, and gurdwaras within blocks of each other. You'll hear Malay, Mandarin, Tamil, and English spoken interchangeably. You'll smell nasi lemak, roti canai, char kway teow, and banana leaf rice all on the same street. This isn't just coexistence, it's integration. Malaysia has 3 major ethnic groups. Malays make up about 69% of the population, Chinese around 23%, and Indians about 7%. Each group maintained its culture, language, and religion while contributing to a shared national identity. Public holidays include Islamic celebrations like Hari Raya, Chinese festivals like Chinese New Year, Indian celebrations like Deepavali, and Christian holidays like Christmas. Schools teach multiple languages. Signage is often trilingual. Now let's talk money. Malaysia's economy is worth over $400 billion, making it one of the largest in Southeast Asia. But what's more impressive is how balanced it is. Manufacturing contributes about 23% to GDP. Services, including finance, tourism, and telecommunications, contribute around 55%. Agriculture, once the backbone of the economy, now contributes about 7%, but it's still significant because of palm oil exports. The remaining share comes from mining and construction. This balance protects Malaysia from shocks. When global electronics demand drops, palm oil exports can pick up the slack. When tourism slows, manufacturing remains stable. Malaysia also has a sovereign wealth fund, Khazanah Nasional, managing assets worth over 160 billion ringgit. Foreign reserves are strong too, sitting at over 570 billion ringgit in 2024. Let's not forget healthcare. Malaysia built a dual healthcare system that's both affordable and high quality. Public hospitals provide free or heavily subsidized care to citizens. Private hospitals offer world-class services at prices that are a fraction of what you'd pay in the US or Europe. Medical tourism became a major industry. Patients from Indonesia, Singapore, the Middle East, and even Western countries fly to Malaysia for surgeries, dental work, and specialized treatments. In 2019, medical tourism brought in over 1.7 billion ringgit. Hospitals like Gleneagles, Sunway Medical Center, and Prince Court are internationally recognized. But Malaysia's model isn't perfect, and cracks are starting to show. The Bumiputera policies, while successful in reducing poverty, are now controversial. Many argue they create inefficiency and discourage meritocracy. Young Chinese and Indian Malaysians feel limited by quotas, and some choose to leave the country. Brain drain is becoming a real problem. Over 1 million Malaysians live abroad, many of them highly educated professionals. Singapore alone has over 1 million Malaysian workers, many in high-paying jobs. Income inequality remains an issue too. While national poverty rates are low, wealth is concentrated in urban areas like Kuala Lumpur, Penang, and Johor. Rural states like Kelantan, Sabah, and Sarawak lag behind. Political instability has also increased. Since 2018, Malaysia has had multiple changes in government. Coalitions form and break apart quickly. Environmental issues are another challenge. Palm oil production, while profitable, has led to deforestation and habitat loss. So where does Malaysia go from here? The government is betting on digitalization and high-tech industries. Initiatives like the Malaysia Digital Economy Blueprint aim to make the country a regional tech hub. Investments in 5G, artificial intelligence, and data centers are increasing. Malaysia is also pushing green energy. Solar power capacity is growing. The government has committed to reducing carbon emissions and transitioning toward renewable energy. Electric vehicle adoption is being incentivized. Companies like Tesla and BYD are exploring manufacturing in Malaysia. Malaysia didn't build the perfect country by following a textbook. They built it by taking risks, making hard decisions, and constantly adapting. They managed diversity without falling apart. They attracted investment without selling out. They grew rapidly without ignoring the poor. And when scandals and crises hit, they didn't collapse. They reformed and kept moving. That resilience, that ability to juggle impossible challenges and still come out ahead, is what makes Malaysia's story so compelling. It's not perfect. No country is. But it's proof that with the right mix of strategy, timing, and determination, even the most unlikely nations can thrive. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment with your thoughts on Malaysia's model. Thanks for watching.